thank you for joining us. Cancel vacation, cancel other appointments. That's the message from a federal judge saying she expects all hands on deck from the Justice Department when it comes to the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man inadvertently deported to a notorious Salvadoran mega prison. Last week, the Supreme Court said the Trump administration must facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, who is living in Maryland. The judge overseeing the case scheduled Tuesday's hearing so the DOJ could provide an update on his status. The administration has previously acknowledged it sent Abrego Garcia to El Salvador due to an administrative error. The U.S. is paying the country $6 million to house deportees. Abrego Garcia's wife spoke after the hearing.
Today is 34 days after his disappearance, and I stand before you filled with spirit that refuses to bring down. Kilmar, if you can hear me, stay strong. God hasn't forgotten about you.
Earlier at the White House Tuesday, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt defended the administration's handling of the case.
Abrego Garcia was a foreign terrorist. He is an MS-13 gang member. He was engaged in human trafficking. He illegally came into our country. And so deporting him back to El Salvador was always going to be the end result.
CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez joins us now. First, I have to mention that they cite a confidential informant when it comes to their allegations that he's an MS-13 member. His wife and lawyer deny that. Also, I need to mention the 2019 order from the judge barring him from being deported to El Salvador because of gang threats against his family. But what happened in this hearing today?
Well, the judge in Maryland overseeing this case, Lindsay, was clearly not happy with the Justice Department and implied that the Trump administration is deliberately not complying with their court ruling. And that court order requires the administration to take steps to, quote, facilitate, unquote, the return of Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The administration, Lindsay, seems to be taking the legal position that facilitate merely implies letting him into the country if the country of El Salvador agrees to, one, release him from the notorious Secot mega prison, and two, bring him back to the U.S. And now we have learned, of course, that Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele is not inclined to do so and to release this man from that government custody. What we do know now is that the judge has ordered a 2-week period of fact-finding and will require the administration to submit regular status updates and also sworn declarations from high-ranking administration officials familiar with this case as to what the administration is doing precisely to bring this man back to U.S. soil. We'll see what happens.
What does the fact-finding mean? And is it your view from what we heard from the judge today that she will accept the administration's interpretation of what facilitate means? Meaning, if El Salvador releases Abrego Garcia, then yes, we can move him. But then again, the administration is saying we would just deport him somewhere else because he's not allowed to be here legally.
Well, I hate to speculate, Lindsay, but I think the judge will eventually rule that the U.S. government has at least the responsibility to request, at the very least again, that the Salvadoran government release Mr. Abrego Garcia from their custody and bring him back to the U.S. We have no confirmation yet that the Trump administration has filed such a request with the Salvadoran government. In fact, they have said publicly that they do not want this man to come back to the U.S. because they argue that he was here illegally, that he was tied to gangs, and that he should not be back in the country because he poses a national security and public safety threat to the country.
I'm going to basically abandon a journalistic rule that we have when it cocomes to questions. I'm going to ask you a threefer, okay?
Okay.
So where does the case go from here? What are the broader implications of this? Like what could we expound beyond Abrego Garcia's case and what the administration is doing? And why is the word facilitate such an interesting focal point here?
Let's tackle the first question first. I believe that after the 2-week period of fact-finding and discovery, the judge will issue a ruling clarifying her order and making it more precise and specific as it relates to the term facilitate, and that likely will include a mandate and a responsibility for the administration to make that formal request to have that man released from Salvadoran custody. Two, I think the administration will continue to provide answers when it comes to his whereabouts, but this case could have wider implications because, as you know, he was not the only deportee sent to this mega prison by the U.S. In fact, during that March 15 operation, when he was deported, the U.S. sent 238 Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador to be imprisoned there by Salvadoran
without
officials.
due process.
And we have found through a 60-minute investigation that at least 75% of them did not have a criminal record in the U.S., and they are contesting the allegation that they are gang members. That is the allegation that the administration has made about the Venezuelan gang members, alleged Venezuelan gang members that were sent there. And so they could potentially have a mechanism to be able to come back here to the U.S. if Kilmar Abrego Garcia does indeed return to the U.S.
Camilo Montoya-Galvez, not the end. Thank you so much.